Hello and good day. This is Boles.tv. Hey, it's Boles.television. Coming to you live and in concert from the East Coast of these United States. It's Boles TV, B-O-L-E-S dot TV dot television. Now, I have a whole list of things to chat with you about today, and some of them are in depth, some of them are a little weird. I hope we get to everything, but if we don't, we'll finish up next time we are together. A lot of interesting things going on in the news. Our strike, while the strikes are on, we have two shirts. We have the SAG-AFTRA shirt. People ask me, what does SAG-AFTRA mean? SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. Okay, movie people. And then AFTRA is American Federation of Television and Radio Artistes. So like TV and radio people. They just kind of came together and formed one union instead of having separate unions, which is very smart. And I'm glad that all the performers are together and working hard. I think they're in week 3, 4 of their strike. The Writers Guild, my other shirt that I wear, my blue shirt, supporting the writers. Over 100 days. Now, the last time there was a writer's strike, it lasted exactly 100 days. And there were meetings and discussions. I think this is 2 or 3 years ago, and the end of the conversation, they all came together, negotiated, had a deal. 100 days in and out. Now we're past 100 days, and there's no end in sight, really. And the producers say they want a deal, and maybe there's been some movement. And some producers say, well, we're just going to starve them out until October, and they're all going to be homeless, and they're going to be able to eat, and then we'll just take advantage of them and win our contract, and they'll be forced to be happy. We'll see how that goes. Now we're going to kind of take a little trip back into the 1980s. Interesting conversations about Frosted Flakes cereal. And I didn't want to mention their brand name, but now I have to because that's their advertisement. And, as well, we're going to talk about The Love Boat, which is a 1980s television staple. So first up, Frosted Flakes has a new, very strange commercial. Frosted Flakes is a children's cereal. Now, they might be trying to sell it to adults, but all that sugar, Tony the Tiger, the cartoon, it's a kid's cereal. And the song they are using now to promote a children's cereal is the theme song from the television show, the 80s television show, Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, okay? That's how Cheers begins. And that song became sort of a hit on its own. But that song, that theme song, is directly connected and related to Cheers, which is a show about people drinking in a bar. A show about alcoholics who go in every day and sit there and drown their sorrows. And hey, it's a comedy starring Ted Danson and Kirstie Alley and a whole bunch of other people. So the song is related to a bar, an adult bar, a bar which you cannot go in and drink if you're a child. And then I guess people who don't know any better or who have convenient memories flip around the song. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, okay? And somebody in the advertising game says, wow, isn't that a neat idea? I love that song. It's just so friendly and welcoming and cheerful. Let's use it to sell a children's cereal. Now, why are they trying to, reminisce with the old people like me who say, hey, wait a minute, that's the theme from Cheers. So I recognize that, and I'm going to buy Frosted Flakes and give it to my children because I recognize that song. Or are these just young people in the advertising game who don't know any better, who maybe have heard the song and think, oh, wouldn't that be great to sell Frosted Flakes? And there's nobody wiser, older in the room, in the advertising agency, to say, hey, wait a minute. I don't think that's a great idea to sell children's cereal using a bar song from the 1980s. I find it very bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. Where's the outrage, people? Now, the other 1980s thing, 1984, to be precise, is this. The Love Boat. Ernie Anderson. And if you were alive in the 1980s, when you said the Love Boat, you never said the Love Boat. You said the Love Boat. Because that's how Ernie did it. So 1984 is the year. Love Boat is a show about love on a cruise boat. Okay. I believe produced by Aaron Spelling, who also did Charlie's Angels and a whole bunch of other interesting shows. Made a lot of money. And the Love Boat had a regular cast, but the thing about it, like Fantasy Island, is they would bring in guest stars to have a cruise, but they weren't playing themselves, they were playing other people. So it was always fun to see your old stars on a new Love Boat episode, and you could reminisce and look back in time and have an enjoyable evening. And Love Boat, the Love Boat, was very mainstream. I think it was on like Friday nights, must-watch TV, whatever night that is, on ABC. And people, wouldn't really talk about it the next day, but it was a long-running show, popular, mainstream America, right? Okay, so year is 1984, which is, 100 years ago or so. And one of the topics of the Love Boat, believe it or not, was transgenderism. And somebody took the storyline of the transgender plot line that, was woven throughout this particular episode from 1984 and posted it online so people could see it. And it was up for about 10 hours before it got taken down because it was like a 5-minute edited clip. And it was just fantastic. And I can't show you the clip because they took it down. And even if they didn't take it down, I couldn't show it to you anyway because copyright. But I can tell you my interpretation of what I watched and what it was like and what story was being told. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I don't think they could do that same scene today on a Love Boat on mainstream evening television. I think they would be roared, screamed out of the room and off the television by certain people who really do not like transgender people. So the story unfolds. The star on the show is Mackenzie Phillips. And she, interestingly, was playing a man who transitioned into a woman. And Gopher, on the Love Boat TV show, Fred Grandy, and everybody loved Gopher. He was silly, he was fun. Now, in real life, Fred Grandy, we found out later, is very conservative, very Republican. I believe he grew up in Iowa. And he was elected to the House of Representatives in these United States as a U.S. congressman. Gopher from Love Boat, right? Okay. So I think, oh, gee, Gopher from Love Boat, conservative, he is very conservative, Republican, Iowa. What must he have felt like to do this transgender story on Love Boat in 1984? Well, it turns out that Fred Grandy, no longer serving in the Congress of the United States, it turns out Fred Grandy is very conservative fiscally, but when it comes to LGBTQ issues, he's very supportive. And if you think about it a little bit, Fred is just being honest. He grew up and was in the television industry for, 20 years, 25 years? There are a lot of gay people and trans people who work in television and the arts. So he obviously was fine with it. He supports them, even though he is a conservative Republican. Now, could he be that today? Could he come out today and say, hey, I'm on the side of LGBTQ people? Hey, it's Jana Marie. Jana Marie says, I thought it was amazing back then that they did show a transgender story back then. Hallelujah. I agree with Jana Marie. And it's nice to see you, my love. So, the Jana Marie sweetheart and I are watching this clip, and Fred Grandy comes out and sees Mackenzie. I think her original male name was Roy, and I think she was Paulina, something like that, using a female name. And Fred Grandy comes out and says, hey, wait, hey, do I know you? You look really familiar. And of course, the Mackenzie Phillips character is like, uh-oh, that's Gopher from high school. He doesn't know I'm a woman now. What do I do? Interesting, right? For 1984. So Mackenzie Phillips says, oh, man, I don't think we've ever met. And Gopher's very insistent. Now, wait a minute. I know you. We're here on the boat together. What's your name? Who are you? What are you doing? And finally, the Mackenzie Phillips character is like, oh, yeah, maybe we were together. Yeah. And then they kind of bring up, oh, you look like, Roy. And then it's kind of suggested, I don't know, by Gopher or Mackenzie, oh, you must be Roy's sister. Even though it's really Roy. You must be Roy's sister. You have the same eyes, the same nose. And that kind of goes on back and forth where he's, asked her to dance and she doesn't want to dance because she's not comfortable. And he says, oh, I know your brother. It'll be fine. He won't care. I'm not dating you. We're just dancing on the ship together. And so there are those kind of scenes of uncomfortableness on Mackenzie's part, and Gopher thinking, wow, hot chick. My best friend from high school that I haven't seen forever's sister that I didn't know he had. And then it's kind of revealed like, well, Gopher, I am Roy, but I don't call myself Roy anymore because I have a new name and I'm really a woman. And Gopher is very confused, does not get angry, does not get upset. There was, no hugging, kissing, making out, none of that. It was just friendliness, right? Dancing together. And Gopher's trying to figure out, well, what do you mean? How is that possible? 1984. Is that 40 years ago? 40 years ago, they were discussing this openly on the Love Boat on ABC television, mainstream primetime television. So then the next scene is very weird, where Gopher goes to his captain, Captain Stubing, Gavin MacLeod, who everybody loves. And this is the interesting part. The Gopher's trying to say, look, I'm conflicted, Captain. And they're talking on the bridge of the Love Boat, the two of them together, the Love Boat. And Gopher's saying, I really I don't know, I'm a little confused because I'm sort of attracted to Roy's sister, but it's not really Roy's sister. It's actually Roy, but Roy is no longer a man. He's now a female. And the script writers, very interestingly, gave Gavin MacLeod, who was sort of like everyone's favorite captain, the father of the United States, Friday nights on the Love Boat. Gavin MacLeod, Captain Stubing's character, takes the opposite view and sort of says, well, those people, the trans people, aren't really people and there's something wrong with them and you shouldn't be fooled by them. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay, I know this is 1984. So the person they have going against the transgenderism, Mackenzie Phillips's character, and Gopher's friendship and feelings is Captain Stubing, the authority figure on the Love Boat. And Gavin MacLeod plays it very coldly, and I hope I'm getting his name right. He plays Captain Stubing very cold and dismissive in that scene, which is not the way he really was at all on the show in that character. So he's representing something. We can probably guess what it was. Jana Marie says it was out of character of the captain. I agree. It was out of character. So that was a weird thing, that this loving captain, who's everybody's friend, everybody's father, is suddenly anti-trans. It didn't make any sense thematically. But I guess you had to have someone on that boat to speak the unspoken, which is no longer unspoken, people who don't like trans people. So I guess they picked the most lovable character to take that point of view. And immediately, Gopher does the right thing and stands up to the captain and says, no, I do not believe that. I do not believe that trans people are there to be mocked and dismissed because of who they are. He said, this person that I like a lot is Roy, is now female. But that doesn't mean that Roy, this person, isn't still my friend, because even though this person doesn't call herself Roy anymore, it's the same person. So how can I not continue to be friends with her as I was when I was friends with him? It's really very touching. And the captain doesn't really remain unconvinced. He's from the little bits we saw, remained very strongly against it. So then the next scene that's kind of put together, you see Mackenzie Phillips and Gopher has had a turnaround, and he is understanding and compassionate, and goes to the Mackenzie Phillips character and says, well, I understand what's going on. This must have been very difficult for you to transition. And Mackenzie is happy that she didn't lose a childhood friend, even though she's not really the same person that he knew when they were growing up in high school together. So it's this wonderful coming together of misunderstanding, not understanding, going to an authority figure tells you it's wrong, and you go against the authority figure and say, no, you're wrong. This person living their life isn't wrong. You're wrong for thinking that way. And then coming to the own conclusion that this person, Gopher, can come out on his own and have his own personality and beliefs that go against the captain's wishes, the standard wishes, the conservative wave, to accept his friend as he knew her and as he knows her now. And Jana and I had a conversation after that. I said, could they have this storyline, this theme today in 20 and 24, 40 years later? And we kind of decided the answer is no. It would not be tolerated. It would be shouted down by the right, protested against the Love Boat. ABC television would have all of their executives doxxed online and made fun of and mocked. And it was very disappointing thinking that way. Because in 40 years, you expect things to get better, not worse. You expect minds to be more open, not more closed. And it seems like we've just gone so far backward in America where something from 1984 on The Love Boat has more relevance and importance and stinging reality than anything that we could put on mainstream television today and tonight. So where do we go from here? What's going to happen in another 40 years? When we look back to that episode of The Love Boat from 1984. In 80 years, are we going to be there? Are we going to be where we are now, full of hatred and despise and accusations that are false against people? Or are we going to be more understanding and more accepting? Are we going to be Gopher from 1984 instead of Captain Stubing in 2050? These are the challenges we face as a people, as a nation, as a world, and we can only hope that we have more understanding and compassion for each other than we do hatred in our hearts. And now we're going to take a very brief break, returning in a moment. And hey, we're back. You're on Boles.tv. It's Boles.television. It's BOLES.tv. So, interesting conversation we've had so far today. And there's so much going on with the news. But first, today in scraping. Remember, we've had a lot of conversations about scraping where, people, entities, bots, AI go and, take content that they don't own and go scrape it. I mean, it's not a little scraping a literal scraping, but in a sense it is a literal scraping. And it happens a lot. You know, copy, paste, hey, it's my article, not your article. I stole it from you, but I'm putting my name on it, so it's my article. That's the thinking. And when you do a podcast or a VOD or a live stream show, people can link to your work, they can embed your videos on their website, and you can turn that off, but sometimes you want the exposure. But when you have a podcast, it uses RSS, really simple syndication. So anybody, good actor, bad actor, can take your RSS feed and feed it into their program and republish you on their site, and you don't even know about it unless you find out about it. Well, hey, look what I found. I was notified today that Ghana, Gaana, is now publishing my Human Meme podcast on their website with their advertising that I don't get any of. And these are old. You know, there's no meta information about when this was published, and they don't want meta information. It looks like they're picking and choosing some of my podcast episodes, not all of them. I think I have like 550, so they're missing several episodes. I have one album. I have no album. They're saying I have an album. And I have one podcast. I don't know what my album is. I guess I should try to find out. And so I go and I look, and here we go. Look at this. All my shows on this Ghana website, which appears to be in India, republishing all of my work. Ghana is a one-stop solution for all your music needs. So I don't know how they've decided which articles to publish, which podcast articles to publish, and which they are publishing. And the images aren't right. This is all very confusing and very hurtful, if I might say so. So that's today's report in scraping. Don't be scraped, but they are coming for you. This is one of my favorite images. And I know that sounds mean, but that's okay. This is sad Donald Trump. And this was this very nice woman. I don't know where this is. I don't know who she is. But I guess they're at some golf place. Probably his golf place in New Jersey. And from what I understand, this is how Trump looks in real life. Because when he puts his suit on and goes to all of his events, people say that he wears slimming clothes. I don't think they call it a girdle anymore, but whatever they call a girdle for a man, that's what he's not wearing here, because when he goes golfing, you really can't wear a girdle because you have to be able to move and twist and be comfortable. And girdles, as I understand it, are not comfortable. And this was taken right after, I believe, he was indicted by Georgia. Now, is that a knowing 1,000-yard stare? As somebody said, if he's convicted of everything he's accused of in Georgia, that's like 700 years in prison. And there's really no way for him to get out of it. You can get pardoned in Georgia, but not by a president and not by a governor, but by the Pardons Commission. and you have to do your time of at least 4 years. So if you're found guilty in Georgia, you're going to be probably imprisoned if you've done a lot of time, a lot of crime, right? So maybe that's what he's thinking about. Maybe that's not what he's thinking about. But there are new polls out fresh this morning that say, 60% of Americans believe he is guilty. And especially among independents, they've really gone against Trump. So why are the GOP clinging to him? I guess it's because they're fearful that if something happens to Trump, he quits, he loses, he's indicted, they don't care. But if he's jailed, put in prison, that they'll never win again, which probably is what should happen. But they think they're going to lose all of his rabid radical support if they go against Donald Trump. Now, the problem with this is, and Chris Christie knows this because he's very sharp and very smart, and says it out loud, that when Trump goes, all these radical MAGA people are going with him. They're not interested in Ron DeSantis. They're not interested in Mike Pence or Chris Christie or anybody else. They love their, what some people call, cult leader. They want Trump, only Trump. They support Trump and only Trump. And if there's somebody else who wants to be Trump or to steal people from Trump, they're not having it. They're not going to be a part of it. So that's a big problem for Trump because of everything that's coming after him. If he is president, he can make 90% of it all go away, probably illegally, by just saying to the special counsel, you're fired, and whatever you're doing, if you're working on me, drop it, or I'm putting you in jail. But Georgia, he cannot do anything about, really. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can, in some way, pull himself out of this without getting indicted. I'm not sure how that would happen. I don't think it can happen. Now, also in the news, for the very first time ever, I get a lot of email from PR people, from production facilities. I received this document attachment from the U.S. Marshals Service. First time ever. I've been, getting PR mail for most of my adult life. I would say 40 years. I get probably 100 emails a day from people sharing information, pitching me ideas, wanting feedback. I've never received anything of this nature from the Marshals Service, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Yet. Oh, and by the way, people say that if Trump is convicted, he won't go to a prison. He won't get home confinement either. What it seems they'll do is kind of what they did during the Civil War, is when they had important people and they had to, take away their rights, they would build a special building on a military base. And then that person would move into that private building on a military base that's protected, and they would then do their time there. So that makes sense because he gets Secret Service protection. So I guess the Secret Service would be in the building with him, but he wouldn't have any outside communication, no phone, no Twitter, nothing like that. He would just be sitting in a room, I guess, with a television on a military base doing his time. That makes sense. That seems fair. He would not be able to come and go on the military. He would have to stay in that building. So that would be interesting to see what happens. So the Marshal Service, on August 14, sent me this. They're looking for a Virginia escapee. $5,000 reward offered for info leading to capture. So this is someone that obviously they really want. I saved this document in my Google Docs because I've never had anything like it before sent to me. And this is who they're looking for. The U.S. Marshals Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force. Say it again. The U.S. Marshals Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force is requesting the public's assistance and offering up to $5,000 as a reward for information leading to the apprehension of a fugitive who escaped from the custody of the Virginia Department of Corrections on August 11. And here's the picture. Nassim Isaiah Rulak, 21, escaped custody while seeking medical treatment at St. Mary's Hospital in Henrico, Virginia. Rulak is a black male, 5'6", weighing 225 pounds, black hair, brown eyes. Any information, contact us. Wow. This is somebody that they obviously want back really bad. Now, here's the problem with it. If you want somebody back that desperately, that you're sending it to people who've never had anything sent to them before, make it more than $5,000. $50,000, now people will pay attention. $100,000, you're going to get people on the streets looking for him. $5,000, not a lot of money today. And what was interesting, the person who sent me this was in the Marshal Service, doing PR for the Marshal Service, and the link in his signature included this. The U.S. Marshal's Office of Public Affairs. They have a Flickr account. There's a Flickr account right here. You can see, these are pictures from the U.S. Marshal. I didn't even know the U.S. Marshal had a Flickr account. And you can click on it, and you can see their photographs of the U.S. Marshals in action. I think it's just wonderful. I had no idea. You can see them at work, arresting people, finding people. Who knew? It's just absolutely delightful. And I guess they're not worried about hiding their faces, right? Because here they are. In the flesh, doing the work of the thankless few, guns drawn, ready to enter a house. Tough job. I'm glad they're asking for help from the public. I just think if you really want people to help, offer more than $5,000 for an escaped fugitive. And look at this. Let's just keep going on and on. All these wonderful images of the U.S. Marshals. I guess this is really good if you're, thinking of going against the U.S. Marshals and you happen upon this Flickr page, you're going to see these guys don't give up. They have guns and armor and helmets, and they're going to find you, and they're going to put you where you belong, in deep custody. So I'll put this link, because it's a public link, I'll put it on our Discord server and our links from the live stream. The U.S. Marshals in action. So, hey, what else is in the news? Sort of sad news. The Metropolitan Opera Guild will wind down amid financial woes. Now, that's just terrible because I think opera is wonderful. I think it's underappreciated. I think that opera in general has done a terrible job of selling itself as a wonderful, unforgettable experience. Now, a lot of the problems people have with opera, I believe, is that they haven't seen a really well-staged show. You cannot just have two people on stage standing there singing. You have to surround them with lights, costumes, sets, a lot of movement, and that's why you have to have absolutely the most interesting kind of director to direct your eye to interesting things going on around the people singing on stage. And a lot of operas today are very boringly staged. So the Opera Guild was founded in 1935 to support the Opera House. And they're laying off 20 employees and will stop publishing Opera News, which is one of my favorite magazines. I have one right over here. as a standalone monthly magazine. This is opera news. The Guild will be reclassified as a supporting organization under the Met. It will no longer operate as an independent nonprofit. The Guild said it would provide severance to its 20 employees and that it expects the Met to hire some of them. Board members will be offered positions on the Met's board. I don't know why they have to do this, really. Well, I guess here's your answer. The Met, grappling with its own financial woes as it works to recover from the pandemic, said it would continue some of the Guild's offerings, including the program that brings school children into the Opera House to watch dress rehearsals. So that's very sad, very hard news to take, especially when you're an opera fan. And then, hey, I get this email from the Metropolitan Opera. We're grateful for your support of the Met. The Guild's monthly publication, Opera News, will continue as a U.S.-focused monthly editorial section in the UK-based opera magazine, beginning in December, following the final issue of Opera News in November. Oh, it's so sad. With ongoing extensive coverage of the Met and the American opera scene. As a Guild member, should we be Guild members anymore? I don't know. What's happening? You will continue to receive Opera News every month. In addition, the Met will incorporate the Guild's largest educational activity, the dress rehearsal program that each year brings 12,000 school children to the Metropolitan Opera House and its wide array of programming. So, that's the news in the world of opera. The Opera Guild is no more. A harbinger of bad news. And finally, Renata Scotto, starring soprano of the 20th century, dies at 89 years old. Now, she was a big, big star. At the Met a bit. But it's interesting that her biography, obituary, very long, I'll just scroll through this really fast, in the Washington Post, right? And she also has a wonderful story, obituary, in the New York Times. And the New York Times feels rushed, inadequate, not as great photographs as you're seeing here in the Washington Post. Now, who would think that the Washington Post would do a better job of covering the death of one of the premier prima donnas in opera? You would think the New York Times would do that better, but they didn't. The Washington Post wrote a beautiful, beautiful obituary. As you can see, it's very long. It covers his comments. But we'll go up here because one of the most interesting stories about Renata is one with Luciano Pavarotti, and here they are together in the Metropolitan Opera production of La Boheme. And I guess when they were kind of starting out together, they performed and took their bows on stage. And I guess somehow Luciano went behind her back. And in an opera, really all operas, the star of the show is the soprano. Now, the male tenor is there, but it's not 50-50. It's probably 90% soprano, 10% leading man, right? That's just the way it is, and that's the way it should be, because the woman, soprano, does all the singing. The really difficult singing, generally speaking. But La Boheme is about Mimi, is about Renata, all right? And so somehow Luciano got on stage and took a solo bow without her. And she didn't find out that he did that until later. I guess somebody told her. And they had been very close friends. She said, like brother and sister. All those years before, they came up together. And she said after he did that to her, she never forgave him. And I don't know if they ever worked together again after that, because she was so upset that he upstaged her by taking a private bow, a solo bow of his own, without her knowledge, I guess, or approval. And I don't think she ever would have approved it. So it's interesting how small things become big things, become petty things, become blockades. And you'd think that two superstars of the opera could put aside their differences, their disappointments in each other, forgive, forget, move on, make wonderful history that people can enjoy now until the end of time. But it's always the little tiny things that get stuck in people's minds that they will not release and they will not let go. And so they stopped appearing together. And it's a sad thing. So she's done. Luciano died, I guess, of pancreatic cancer several years ago, and Renata lived to 89. Died in Italy, where she was born and raised. Well, that's our show for the day. My goodness, we've had such a wonderful time together. I thank you so much for being here. There we go. If you have any questions or comments about anything you've heard today, you like, you don't like, you want to suggest a topic for a future conversation, you know where to find me. You can go to our Discord server, discord.gg/BOLES. Let's see if I can put it up here one more time, just for you. Oops, he didn't print, as they say in the biz. There we go. So until next time, take care, be well. You know where to find me. I'm always interested in hearing from you. Take care, be well. I'll see you again soon. Bye.